This episode of the SwitchCast is produced by Dave Gardner, our honored Patreon member and Switch Knight.
Hi everybody, I'm KC.
And I'm JV.
And this is the SwitchCast, the podcast for the Nintendo Switch sapient. And we have a fun, festive, and artificially intelligent episode for you this week.
Okay, alright, I'll take it.
See, we're not really intelligent, we're just artificially intelligent because we've researched this very narrow topic of the Nintendo Switch. So we could sound like we're erudites, but we're really kind of idiots everywhere else.
I think it's pretty apparent by now that we're pretty idiots.
I'm a pretty idiot. You're average looking idiot.
I'm an average idiot. Oh, let's not be superficial here. We're all idiots of the same level of beauty.
How's your week been, JV?
It's been pretty good. It was David's birthday this past week, so we ended up doing some celebrating. Got to play a bunch of Switch games on the side. Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, there are a lot of demos and preview events on the Switch now, and I actually ended up playing demos almost all of this past week.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, isn't that strange? There's the Valkyria Chronicles 4 demo, there was the Dragon Ball FighterZ, the Monster Hunter Generation Ultimate is coming out tomorrow. So, there's just so many demos and so many preview things on the Switch that you may not even be playing a full-fledged game on the console for a while.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been very focused this week on, the game I'm going to review today, which I'm happy to say is a visual novel that actually represents what I've been wanting to talk about on this show for a while, like a real good visual novel that I can finally sink my teeth into. But in addition, actually, one of the other things is I'm going to be camping next week, right? So I'm going to be away from the show. So I'm guessing David will fill in for me, though, right? Perhaps. So who knows? JV's got a whole stable of co-hosts waiting to come on. But I always try to bring a book up there, and it's just kind of funny that if I had saved, I'm almost done with the game, so I won't have it up there. But if I had saved more of this game, it would have been my book for camping reading, basically, because it is a pretty deep, visual novel style game. But the book I've actually been getting into, as I mentioned to you, I've been playing Magic the Gathering a bit lately, right?
Yes.
And when I get into any kind of a setting, right?
Yeah.
I want to fully immerse myself in it. So I started out Wikipedia article researching all the different characters in and getting into it. After a while, I was just why am I doing this? Why don't I just get one of the Magic novels? Oh, so
you're actually getting into the lore of MTG.
Yes.
How cool is that?
I'm very fascinated with the old school stuff. Apparently, there was a big split in what the main characters, the planeswalkers of Magic, could do before and after a certain event, and they used to be very godlike. And the books in the original stuff, and I just kind of touched upon them, that's very mythic kind of stuff, like Odyssey level, changing the world with godlike powers and wars like shattered planets, Dragon Ball Z stuff.
That's the very concept of a planeswalker. It's a being that can traverse different planes of existence. So,
well, apparently there was a point where they wanted to make them more relatable to
they wanted to personify the planeswalkers and characterize them more to be distinct.
So they've kind of gotten a lore nerf, and now they're way less, they're still awesome and have magic, but they're way less, they're not godlike anymore. But I decided to start reading one of the newer ones. It's called Agents of Artifice. It's about Jay Spellerin and some of the other...
nice.
Yes, and some of the other famous ones, like Liliana Vess is in there too, and I think Nicol Bolas or Tezzeret's going to be one of the villains. All the named planeswalkers in the game are in there. So I was all right, I want to absorb this, and then I'm going to go back and maybe read some of that more mythic stuff in the past. But no, it's actually really well written so far. There's a lot of the novels, so I know some aren't great, but this one right now is it's got me it's got me going.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about these novels. They really hire authors that are familiar with the fantasy genre. So they can pull the characters in from Magic the Gathering into a more compelling story. I actually really like how they're handling planeswalkers nowadays, because back then, when you were fighting against another player, there aren't really any distinguished, consistent characters that you can relate to. And now there are, like Liliana, Chandra, Venser, who is one of my favorites. These are all characters that are recognizably Magic the Gathering.
Right, yeah. It's been a really good branding move for them too, definitely for that. So I'll let you know how that goes as I get deeper into it.
Let us know.
Yes, and I also want to thank you, JV. You've helped me pick out the computer that I'm ready to pull the trigger on. I'll probably place the order next week. And to everybody in the chat that I told to nag me about getting the computer so I could start doing streaming soon. All right. You are now alleviated of your duty. JV's helped me pick a computer, and I'm just going to place the order probably next week so it arrives after I get back from camping, so I can start doing that soon.
There you go. That's another ordeal.
Yeah.
Covered.
That's right.
It's finally done.
Speaking of ordeals, of course, as I predicted, the Switch Topics episode, it's not going to work out for this weekend, right?
No, it's not. And it's not going to work out for next weekend or the week after next either. So it looks like we might not be doing the Switch Topics even in August.
I might have to do a different Switch Topics before that. And there's plenty of things. Honestly, I'm ready to do already a Switch Topics on read-only memories.
Oh, yeah. Do you think there's enough people who've played it and would be willing to discuss it?
Well, it's been out on Steam for a while. So there's a chance that I might be able to reach out to some people who are in the community who might have played it elsewhere, or maybe those who want to, after hearing my review today, maybe they'll play it, maybe they'll download it, and maybe they'll be ready to Switch Topics it up with me in 2 weeks.
You really think it's achieved the level where Switch Topics would be warranted for this?
Well, I mean, the only real level that's required is it has enough story, and I'm interested in enough to talk about it for a couple hours, and I think it does.
All right. Well, I definitely want to see what your thoughts are in the review section then. It's very interesting.
Yeah. I'll just say that there's a lot to pull apart in this, and a lot of ways to look at this here.
I definitely want to jump into it as soon as we can.
Yep. I'm just going to, before we go into the game time, I'm just going to remind everybody about our Patreon page. If you like what we do and you want us to keep doing more awesome stuff, the best way to help us do more of it is to go to patreon.com/theswitchcast, and you can pledge $1, $2, $5, $20, whatever you want. And if you don't, whatever you can afford, honestly, we don't want anyone, stretching their meal budget out because of us. If $1 is, if $1 is all you're fine with, Godspeed. We're happy to have your support anyway. But yeah, definitely check it out. And we have a whole set of different rewards. And JV, you said you're probably sending out all those rewards this week now. You got it all set up to go?
Oh, I'm excited to finally let it all out in the mailing system to be sent to you all.
Okay. So we have it all there. So you can start maybe expecting those in the very, very near future now that they're actually ready to ship. Yep. All right, so that's all that. Why don't we talk about what we've been playing and shift into the game time?
Let's do it. Alright, so I'll be reviewing Dead Cells. I haven't played a single minute of that game, but I feel like I'm qualified enough, right?
You went for it.
I did. Alright, okay, what did you play, Casey?
Okay. Alright, so yes, as I mentioned, I've been waiting to play this for a while. 2064 Read-Only Memories Integral. This is finally, like I've been mentioning before, I was waiting for a game to be able to show people what a visual novel is capable of being, and not like a dating sim one or one with a weird gimmick. Like everybody recommends I play that one,
Hatoful Boyfriend?
No, yeah, well, that's one everyone recommends. Everyone tells me, oh, you're into visual novels, you should play Hatoful Boyfriend. And I'm like, no, it's more of a parody on the genre. That's a visual novel for people who aren't really into visual novels, in my opinion. And I've tried it, and it's just like, yeah, I get what they're doing. It's cute, but it's not like appealing to what the normal visual novelist is looking for, and other ones like that are like kind of gimmicky.
Like a Doki Doki Literature Club, that type of stuff.
That's the other one, right?
Yeah.
And again, it does something cute and it has a good point, but it's not what I play them for. This, I am very, very happy to say, is what I play the visual novel genre for. And it has some extra features that I actually haven't seen in the genre before that I'm very happy to see brought in a really cool way.
All right, so just to start us off, though, I tried to pull up the 2064 Read-Only Memories integral page on Nintendo, and it had an age gate. What does that imply?
Oh, right. Well, the game definitely has... It's a mature game, definitely, for sure. It starts off and has a very kind of a cute aesthetic. Like, they have a bit of a pixel art kind of presentation. It almost looks like it's on like an old like 1980s computer, like a 1990s computer. Like it has that level of graphics, but still animated a bit better and has really good voice acting to bring it into like this age. But the topic matter, there's a couple of scenes where you're going to see a dead body and there's like people get murdered in this story.
So this is a very explicitly M-rated game.
I'd say it makes M rating, but not like, it's not gratuitous.
Gotcha,
all right?
Gotcha. It's not like Doom.
It's not a Doom game. They're not like blowing people up. The game is really a noir story, but set in a, what's that word? Like retro-futuristic kind of setting.
Is it kind of cyberpunk-like?
It's a cyberpunk setting, but imagine if the cyberpunk age hit the 80s. Everything is very strongly like 80s aesthetic, but it's this cyberpunk San Francisco. So there's robots. There's genetic modification. There's a big thing with like cybernetics being, attached to people.
So it's like retrofuturism, something.
That's
like that.
the word. Yeah. Kind of like Blade Runner. It has a little bit of a Blade Runner feel too. I'd say like that kind of like, future, but not like super techno future with like rocket ships yet. But
retro cyberpunk. Okay, I like that aesthetic actually.
No, yeah, it's a really nice aesthetic. It's a cool system, and the setting is a pretty fleshed out world. It has a lot of interesting things going on. So, as I said, the game it's kind of a film noir story at its heart. You are this journalist. You do tech reviews on a website kind of thing.
Okay.
But you just wake up one day and there's this little robot dude in your room, and he apparently just like kind of hacked his way into your house, and he asks you. Basically, he's just like, hey, you were friends with this guy Hayden, right? Well, he made me, and I think he just got kidnapped. Can you help me find him?
Wow.
So
what a way to start. Jeez.
It started, and it's like, it literally is very like, what's going on here? How did you get in my house? This kind of thing. Now, the robot is actually, he's a very important and interesting character to the game. His name is Turing. And
nice.
Yes, based on the famous the Turing test. If anyone's unfamiliar, the Turing test is basically the test by which we would test if a AI has really achieved human-like abilities. If a person can't tell the difference between an AI talking to them and a human talking to them, it's basically, all right, that's the test. You're now real deal AI.
Yep, Len, let's give credit to Alan Turing, who devised the Turing test. He was a famous computer scientist of that era.
Yes. So Turing, he's kind of and I'm already falling into one of the traps of the game. I'm calling Turing a he. And Turing is a robot. Well, it is actually part of the plot point where this will come up. But a lot of people in the story itself default by calling him a he. But they're this little robot. They're very cute. They have this very expressive face that it's simplistic, but it almost looks like an emoji the way it like turns into like different expressions. And he has this cute voice. Like he sounds almost like a prodigy child, right? He talks like he's very proud of himself and his intelligence and his abilities, but he's still very unsure of himself because he's kind of young. And the point is, Turing is the creation of this Hayden guy who was trying to create the first sapient, artificially intelligent robot that's, basically as human-like as possible.
Right.
And so naturally they think, they kidnapped him trying to get Turing. So you get embroiled in this investigation trying to find out who kidnapped him, why they did it.
So you do find out that the motive of this kidnapping is to kidnap Turing, essentially, not necessarily the creator?
Well, no, I'm not going to say that. That's what the assumed rationale is at the beginning.
Gotcha.
Nothing in the story goes where you think it's going to go, though. This story, as it goes on, takes a lot of twists. It gets real deep. And I just hit like the 5th chapter recently, and crazy stuff has just started happening. Like just it's hit the fan, and I had to stop the game for like 10 minutes because some major stuff just started happening. Crazy twists were dropped on my lap, and I just had to catch my breath. All right. The story starts off pretty, straightforward and not too crazy, but things pick up, and after a while, it gets very tense and very serious.
I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah. So the way it plays out, it's very similar to if anyone's ever played one of those Phoenix Wright games, right?
Yes.
It's like Phoenix Wright without the courtroom scenes. It's all going to different locations, talking to characters, choosing what you want to say. There's a little bit of point and click in there, is that you'll pick up a few items. Sometimes you'll use an item on something, but 90% of the time, all you're really doing is talking to the right person, and the plot is unveiled as you do that. And maybe like they'll tell you to talk to this person. Maybe there'll be a little bit of a puzzle involved at certain parts where someone's like, yeah, I'll help you out, but you're going to have to go and do this favor for me. And then that favor might be like, just give you an example. They want you to break up this protest that's going on somewhere. So, and there's not always only one way to solve some of these problems. I feel like it's almost like they built in safety net solutions to some of these puzzles. Like, you can go there and there's usually a very interesting and maybe a little complex, but a multi-step solution to a certain problem. Like, all right, I need to, let's say, break up this protest. Maybe I can go talk to this person who gives me a clue about using this item on this thing and maybe messing with this computer in this very long kind of step-by-step way will eventually solve the problem.
Okay, so these little puzzles are not necessarily broken up. Kind of like in Professor Layton, they're not a completely separate interface. It's actually part of the dialogue.
Yeah, it's more of like the point-and-click adventure style of a puzzle where you have to figure out what item to use on what thing in order to solve the problem you're faced with.
Gotcha.
But
okay.
I feel like, at least for the ones that I have encountered, there seems to always be a very simple solution that you can do that's there almost as if, like, look, if that's too complicated or you're just not seeing the real solution, here's a really simple solution that'll get you through this puzzle. It takes a little bit of thought, but it's not like that hard. But the characters in the game might frown upon it. Like, I don't think it's a real penalty in terms of the gameplay or story. I think they just make it seem like, oh, this seems like a more violent solution than we were looking for. Do you really want to do it? And I think it's just their way of saying, this is the easy out. Do you want to experience all the stuff we've planned for you? Or do you just want to get through this puzzle? It's too frustrating and you just want to use this quick solution and that's it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it's nice that they're able to consider that as an option, though. Some people really would want to skip the puzzle.
Yeah. And I haven't felt like any of them are that hard right now. It just might not be that interesting for some people because it's not like the main gameplay of this. But I have enjoyed all the puzzles so far. And I feel a little rewarded for doing them because every so often Turing will have a sit down with you and just kind of like, all right, let's go over what happened today. And he'll tell you how happy he is with the solutions that you've figured out. And again, I don't think there's any actual prize in the game other than Turing just being happy with you and, telling you that was good of you and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But there are some other great characters in this game as well. There's a cool detective you meet. She used to date your sister, so you have this little background with her, and there's this tension of she still seems to have feelings for your sister, but she's doesn't want to talk to her right now. She feels like it's too awkward, and you kind of feel awkward going to her for help. There's a lot of depth to the characters. In fact, even non-major characters all feel like they have a real backstory to them that you can get to know through certain plot points. And it kind of contrasts with me, and this is why it stands out, is that the game, when you play the Phoenix Wright games, and I'll never badmouth Phoenix Wright. I love that series, one of the closest things. But one of the things about Phoenix Wright is it's very comical, right?
Right. And that's part of the charm of it.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing, is almost everyone you talk to, except for the most major characters, are kind of gags. They're either a really big stereotype. Oh, here's the typical old lady character. Here's the crazy
photographer lady.
Yeah, the photographer, or the really flamboyant chef, that kind of stuff. Everyone's a caricature, and you don't really feel like they're real people. In this, there are no real... There's some eccentric characters for sure, but none of them feel implausible as people. And that's a big strength of it, is that you can use common sense to kind of understand who's a good guy, maybe who's a bad guy, or what their motivations are. If there is even such a thing as a good or a bad guy, what's everyone's motivations for doing things? You can kind of suss that out by talking to them.
That's interesting. So you are able to discern whether they're a good person or not based on the dialogue, which kind of speaks to how strong the dialogue is.
Yeah, it was really great dialogue too. I'll put it this way: there's really good voice acting, and everyone has a pretty believable sound. And again, they all are very characteristic. And actually, I did recognize Jim Sterling is actually one of the voices in this game.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
From Jimquisition?
Yes, from the Jimquisition fame. And
wow.
He does, ironically, he's the character in this. So there's this one group of people in the game that are kind of I want to say they're kind of the conservative movement of this game. Like as I mentioned, in this game, there's a lot of people with cybernetics, and there's genetic augmentation going on in this game. So you'll there's some characters you'll meet that have cat ears, or they have fur, or they have rabbit ears, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Some of them are doing it out of desire, and some of them are doing it because they have medical conditions that they needed to have solved, that only weird genetic stuff can be done. But there's this one group that in the game are kind of the humans need to be pure kind of group in the game. And they, they kind of make them out to be people don't really like them. They're a bit of an unpopular movement. But they could have very easily written this group off to be just belligerent idiots and
a comical villain,
right.
that's doesn't really have any nuance to it.
Exactly. But when you talk to them, they're not monsters. The people, whether you agree with that kind of viewpoint or not in the game, when you talk to Jim Sterling's character, who's I can't think of now, he's not a horrible person, and they could have very easily made him just clearly the bad guy that's an idiot, but they made him a balanced person who's look, we don't believe in violence, we just, we don't think this is the way that humanity should go, and we're protesting this and that kind of stuff. And it was just interesting, and just very, I appreciated that they didn't no one's a two-dimensional
caricaturized.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, a lot of your interactions, it's mostly, like I said, you're just choosing the way you talk to people. You get to, control the story a little bit that way. You get a few little choices. Who else was there? Oh, right. There's some other cool characters, like a Tomcat, who's your hacker friend who's helping you, dig up information on the mesh, which is kind of like the internet in this game, the mesh.
Right.
Oh, right. And the way the characters evolve over time has been cool. Turing in particular, I feel he starts out very, like I said, he's very childish at first, but I almost feel over the course of the game, he's been kind of growing up fast, being exposed to you, who you can react to him in a lot. Like, you can totally be like, oh, little buddy, you're so cool. You could just like praise him everywhere. Or you could kind of be a jerk to him, and you could just kind of be like, all right, stop talking so much, you bucket of bolts. Like, you could be like that kind of person to him.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so does he... is that interaction persistent in a way?
I think so. I get the feeling that... I mean, maybe I'd have to play it over a couple times, but I get the feeling that my mannerisms are starting to rub off on him. Because he is, like I said, such a child that he's like, and he's a child who has, for all intents and purposes, lost his father right now, right? His father's missing. And now you're the only one who's there to help him and guide him. And I feel like, he's definitely looking to you for kind of like what it is to be a person. I mean, that's what he was programmed to do.
Yeah. And honestly, the fact that you aren't necessarily able to discern whether Turing's reactions are based on your behavior or not speaks to the writing of the character in a way.
Now, that's like the main plot of the game I've kind of talked about in the main gameplay. Now, there's two other things that are important to talk about in this game. I think that this is one of the other things that makes it really attractive, I think, is... So there's the main plot. Then there's like the subplot. There's this world, the background story, right? And as I mentioned, there's like those groups, right? They're fighting humans becoming more roboticized and genetically altered. But at the same time, I mentioned there's that detective, right? Who dated your sister. I met this bartender who has a gay boyfriend, right? No one bats an eye. Like, no one and there's lots of other examples of a lot of inclusion in this game, right? There's characters who break gender norms. Like, there's flat out, and they set you up for this, but they don't make a big deal of it. Like, they set you up in one scene to like, oh yeah, you're looking for this woman in a room, and the woman is the person with a beard and that's it. No one makes like a bearded woman joke. It's just like, oh, that is how this woman chooses to appear. That's it. And nobody in the game is like, oh, it's a gay bartender, or this woman, this is a gay cop. That's not even like brought up. And I think it's great because it's almost like the world has gotten to a point in this game where that's not an issue. And the fact that they're like focusing on these genetics and other sort of stuff, it's almost like it's a similar kind of political issue. But it's like we've moved on to something else. And the world's gotten past these issues of gay and lesbian, transgender kind of topics. And even Turing himself kind of talks about this. He's like, people call me a he, but I don't really like identify as a him or a her. I'm a robot, so I don't know if it makes sense for me to be a boy or a girl, Right. And it does look like I believe they have preferred pronouns for each character, listed somewhere on their website, or at least on their wiki. Oh, right, yeah. And you can choose for yourself, right. They give you a point in the game where you choose for yourself your pronouns, and they, in addition to including he, her, or Z and Zer and that kind of stuff, or they, if you just want to be called they, you can just create your own pronouns. You could just like say, hey, what do you want people to call you, like in all these contexts, and just make them up on your own.
Right. And I believe this is the type of game that would be most amenable to this style of storytelling, too, or portrayal.
But what I appreciate is they don't beat you over the head with it. Like I said, it's just a thing that exists in the world. It's not like they're trying to make a big message. Like, if anyone here is like made uncomfortable by this kind of topic matter, I just want you to know the game is good without this, even without this focus. Like, you could probably play this game and not even pay attention to this aspect of it. It's solid. It's just there in the background. And if you want to think about it, you can. And I think it's just beautifully done, that it's just not such a focused on thing. It's just there. They just included people because that's what you can do. It's what you should do. You should just include people, and it's normal to just have people of And not just of like this LBGT sort of thing. Like there's people of all kinds of ethnic backgrounds in the game that are, it's just, they went out of their way to be very inclusive, I feel. And they just did it in a elegant manner. That's the way I want to put it.
Right. That makes total sense. And I do like that you brought up that point that if there's anyone that's particularly uncomfortable with this subject matter, this game would still be enjoyable to them. And perhaps being exposed to this stuff in the peripheral may assist with that.
Yeah. And like I said, mid-boss, just reading there about their mission statement is, we seek to make the world better, safer, and more inclusive to marginalized people, especially those in the gender and sexuality spectrum. So, it's just something there that I think that it's nice, and they did it in a way that really didn't affect the gameplay directly. It just made the background, the setting more, I think, lush.
Okay, so, and overall, this is definitely in your wheelhouse when it comes to the gameplay. It sounds like it's primarily presented through, word, dialogue choices and voice acting and text. There's no additional gameplay, outside of that text?
A few little mini games here and there. There was a little hacking mini game I got to play once or twice. And let's see, in addition to the puzzle solving, there was like one little riddle kind of section I had to do. But yeah, other than that, no, it is really just about the dialogue and enjoying the story. And it's about how you want to see the story. Like I said, sometimes you have to pick a character or which character am I going to go to for help in this certain situation? And I would go back actually, and sometimes I would load my game back and just see how the other way went, just because I was curious and I wanted to see, like, I don't know, did that choice matter? Sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it totally changes what happens to some of the characters in the storyline. And it might be worth playing over for some people, but you have enough save files that you can just go back and, see what your other choices might have done. Though I don't know, there might be some long-term effects in the story.
Right, because some visual novels actually encourage you to replay them because they have different branches of storytelling that you haven't explored if you go in one direction.
Yeah. So I can't talk too much about the story, which is the biggest draw of this game, because I don't want to spoil too much of it. But I will just say that the story goes in some very interesting ways. It has a lot of humor in it too. I mean, it's one of those games where, like, just looking at objects in the background, they usually have written a funny little gag for when you look at them, or I'm going to try to talk to this plant. You could try to talk to any object, and they usually have a funny one-liner for when you do that, or there's a lot of funny interactions you can have with certain characters. But like I said, it's about absorbing the story, and I think it's a really good... I think it has a lot of things you'd like, Jay, because like I said, it's a Phoenix Wright style game, but it's set in this cyberpunk world, and it addresses a lot of these really cool issues about AI and the future of humanity.
And that is definitely subject matter that I am super down for.
Yeah, it's actually surprisingly relevant, a lot of the topics they talk about in this game. It's a sci-fi setting, but it's one of those kind of sci-fi settings that feels like it's something that very much can happen. And even as the story starts going into some unexpected directions and there's some really big twists, I still feel like it never goes into the realm of completely implausible. Everything that happens and all the twists that happen, I'm shocked when they happen, but I'm like, wow, that kind of makes sense with what's going on, and I'm digging it. So definitely, if anyone has it, I think the voice acting helps you get through. If anyone doesn't like the idea of reading an entire story, since 98% of the text is voiced.
Oh, gotcha. That's actually one of the questions I was going to give you, if everything was voiced or not.
Very few things are not voiced. And just some minor background characters that are just there for flavor. They might not be voice acted. But every major character is voice acted with almost everything that you can say to them. And it makes the text an easy pill to swallow for anybody.
So, ultimately, would you be able to endorse this game to people who don't like visual novels?
I think if there's any chance you're going to like visual novels, this is going to be the one to do it. It pulls you in quickly, it's written sharply and smartly, and, if you're the kind of person who, even if you're someone who thinks they probably will never like visual novels, I still think this is one to give it a chance with. And then if you don't like this game, yeah, you probably will never like visual novels. That's fine. But if there's any chance you're going to like them, this is definitely the best one I can recommend for the Switch. And I hope it increases the interest in the genre so that we might see more of them in the future.
Yeah, I definitely, this definitely seems like a glowing review, and I'm very tempted to pick it up myself to play on my trip to PAX West.
Yeah. Oh, also great soundtrack. I mean, all the backgrounds and stuff, they're very, I don't know, it's just got a really good kind of techno sci-fi soundtrack going on with it there. That
is it a chiptunesy type techno, or is it just a standard?
No, it's
chiptunesy.
Sound? It the whole game has like I said, a pixely and chiptunesy kind of vibe to it. Like I said, it feels like a game that could have been made in like the 90s.
Yeah. Well, that sounds really good, and I feel like the graphics, the art style, and the music all mesh together into a really nice package here.
Yeah, and it has like that I guess you would call that is that like 80s anime kind of art?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, it's got like that 80s anime art, so it does have that little bit of nostalgia. So, but it's a kind of nostalgia I think that even people who weren't watching anime in the 80s still can enjoy this art style.
Yeah, and recognize. And ultimately, it really is worth emphasizing that this is a game that does cover those types, or at least includes those types of gender-based
topics.
Yeah, gender-based topics. And that's something that's a touchy subject to you. It's enough in the peripheral that it won't really affect their enjoyment of the game.
Like I said, they don't beat you over the head with it. And honestly, if it's an issue that you are touchy about, this might be the game to teach you how to get used to it. Honestly, and I don't mean that in like a antagonistic way. This is the kind of game that shows you how it doesn't have to be a big deal.
Issue.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be an issue. Like, you can just have people like these characters, like in the real world. You can meet a gay bartender and it not be like you nudge your friend like, hey, I think the bartender's gay. Like, who cares?
There you go. We'll stick with that.
Okay. All right. So, JV, what was some of the demos that you picked this week? Anyway, just to give me a quick rundown of those.
So, you know how much I love the Valkyria Chronicles franchise, or the games from the original PlayStation 3, I think. Mm-hmm. Valkyria Chronicles 4 demo, that came out on the Switch, and I gotta say, I love this gameplay style.
Oh,
I miss it so much. So it's a turn-based strategy game where you control a specific character, in a turn-based order. Now, the distance that each player and each character moves is fixed, but whenever you switch to a specific character and control them, you actually control them in a somewhat third-person way. If you've ever played Codename Steam on the 3DS, this is the exact mechanic. But I don't want to dig into this too much because I will 100% be reviewing this Valkyria Chronicles 4 when it officially comes out on the Switch. Mm-hmm. But just picking the demo up again really rekindled my desire for this style of game.
That's nice. Do you know when the full game's coming out?
On the Switch, it is coming out September 25th, so that's going to be exciting for me. Hopefully, the full game lives up to the hype that I'm setting for it, but it's something to look forward to in the future. I was also playing the Dragon Ball FighterZ game on there. They had a bit of a weekend server test, and you know how hyped I am for that game as well. And I'll be reviewing that in the very near future too.
Cool. And I just made a little progress this week in between sessions of read-only memories with Octopath Traveler, and I just noticed there was a few little extra things I got to experience as I progressed through some of the storyline chapters. I like that I finally started seeing these little interaction cutscenes they have at certain points between characters in your party, where at certain plot points, depending on who's in your party, they'll give you the option to hit the plus button, and you'll see like a little conversation between like let's say Tressa and Primrose or something like that. And they're just pretty cute little flavor, text giving you an idea of like what the characters are saying to each other about the situations that they're in, or saying like, oh wow, I didn't realize you had to go through all this. Well, I got your back, that kind of stuff. But like I said, it's just fun seeing like I said, I'm advancing through the chapters bit by bit, and it's good because it is the kind of game you could step away from and go back to after a break easily, because all the storylines are broken up so clearly by the chapters, and you could just check on the map like, oh, okay, I can go to here or here or here for level appropriate story chapters, and you could just easily see like, oh yes, the last time I did this character's story, this is what happened. And it's very like simple, because each character only has like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 chapters of story each. So whenever, let's say I go to the next storyline chapter for Cyrus, there's not actually a lot that I have to remember about his story when I go to his next chapter. It's just like, oh, I could read 2 paragraphs. I remember everything that happened with him now, and I can go on with his next chapter, like fully informed.
Well, I feel like that's probably an intentional choice, because despite the Nintendo Switch being a full-fledged console, they still want to be able to give people the option to cut up their experience into more bite-sized episodes. And I do feel like Octopath Traveler would probably warrant a Switch Topics at some point in the future.
Oh, it will. But that will be a little further down the line, because I'm taking my time with this one.
Yeah, savor it, KC. But when this was announced, this was definitely a KC game, and I want you to enjoy it to the fullest.
All right, well, it's time for KC to move into the news rundown. Are you going to come with me?
Yeah, JV will join as well.
All right, news rundown, and here are your headlines.
Yeah, so speaking of demos, and I believe I mentioned this in the previous segment, Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is getting a free demo today.
Oh, gosh.
August 16th.
Now, what's weird is the game's only coming out in like about a week
2 weeks.
2? Yeah, 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think it's the 28th, and so, like, I mean, that's pretty, I guess that's just about a right amount of time, but I guess I'm just used to all these demos, like Valkyria or the Octopath one, they come out months in advance, but this one is coming out right in time to get people into it, and before they forget it exists, I guess you're going to want to buy it.
Yeah, I do. And so I do want to ask, Casey, if you would be okay with David and I doing a Monster Hunter episode for next week.
No, I think that's fine. That's a perfect way to, like, because obviously the week after that, the game will be out. So I'll be playing the real full game by then. Next week, you guys doing Monster Hunter's perfect.
All right, we'll do it. Yeah. All right, plans. Sounds good to me.
All right. Yes, I'm very interested to see what they're adding to this game. I've actually not been following too much about what they're throwing into it, because I kind of want to be surprised by it. And I mean, this is a game we're probably all gonna put in 100 hours each in. It's gonna be one of those games. So
absolutely, if that, it might even be more.
It'll be great though. I feel like this will be the first time where I have, like, usually have 4 dedicated friends I play with all the time. I feel like now I'm gonna have like 20 dedicated friends in the Discord chat who I will be playing with all the time.
Or, like 1,000 or 1,000,000 dedicated friends. All you listeners out there.
After 1,000,000, is it dedicated?
Really dedicated? Oh, that's fair.
I have an exclusive relationship. I only talk to 500,000 people.
Oh, okay. See, narrowing it down. It's less than 1,000,000. It's less than 1,000,000.
I like that, what's it called, we were talking about last week, I believe you said the words, confirmed Luigi RIP, and Nintendo did go on the record to confirm Luigi is not actually dead, people, in case you thought that was a real thing.
Yeah, I love Nintendo UK VS's tweet. It literally is just, Luigi is okay.
Yes.
Luigi is okay.
But I did see some people did start trying to defragment that blurred out image for the hidden mode in the direct that we saw.
Yeah.
And I believe it's, what is it, at Noctulescent, if that's the person who actually did this. He posted on Twitter a de-resing of it, or as best as he could, or like defragmenting. And it looks like, if this is true, that the word for the mode is spirits. Apparently even the Japanese versions of this blurred out trailer spelled out a similar word with katakana. So it's possible this could have some tie-in with Luigi's spirit who was ripped from him. And in previous teasers, Luigi's not the first character that we've seen actually get like kind of murdered in a trailer. When they revealed Ridley, keep saying Ripley.
Everyone does.
When they revealed Ridley, they showed Mario and Mega Man get swiped away by the creature before Samus faces him down. So it's almost like we saw them get killed too. So maybe this has something to do with this spirits mode. Like, and I stand by that it's going to be the solo, the story mode, like the subspace emissary mode of this.
Oh, I have no doubt that it's the single player or the solo mode that they're hiding. And the fact that they're hyping this up as much as they are and keeping it as secret as they are implies that there is more to this than just a standard arcade mode or just a standard run through and defeat as many of these characters as possible. I feel like it's going to be more substantial than we would normally expect.
So I'm wondering how the spirits thing might tie into it. If that's going to be the way you recruit characters to unlock them in the full mode, like you have to rescue their spirits and
and then bring them into their bodies, and then you can now play as that character. That would be really cool. That seems like it would be an interesting single player mode.
Also of note, in the Smash Brothers world, Masahiro Sakurai did mention in an interview, actually, that if the demand is there, he's going to continue to make Smash Brothers games. So this is not necessarily his last hurrah, as we kind of speculated in the past.
Yeah, right. And I feel like there's always that sentiment that Masahiro Sakurai is going to finish and stop making Smash games. Like in Brawl, everyone felt that was his last game. In 4, that was his last game. And then in this one, people thought this was his last game. But it's not. And he was able to confirm that he doesn't feel like it's going to be his last game at all.
Okay, yeah. So that's fine. It's just like, I guess it just felt like it because it's such a big, it has the name Ultimate. It feels like this big finale, or maybe that he was just teaching the next generation to carry on the series from there, and that he could move, focus on some other titles. But no, that's fine. If the guy who knows it this well, wants to keep doing it, God bless.
And it's not just that, it's Masahiro Sakurai puts his whole effort and whole being into these games, and it does seem like it is taxing to his health. So the fact that he's willing to proceed despite any stress that this game provides shows just how dedicated he is. All right, so this is a bit of a leak, and I know some people might not be the biggest fans of leaks, but this is something we do have to cover. It looks like Diablo 3 is almost confirmed to be coming to the Switch. Looks like it's going to be called the Eternal Collection, and it does look like it's going to have 4-player local multiplayer on the same Switch or with 4 different Switches, which is so mind-blowing to me. I love it.
Almost as mind-blowing as that picture of Ganondorf.
Yes, apparently you can play as a Ganondorf appearing character in this. I think it's going to be a barbarian, and it's just a cosmetic piece that you wear above your barbarian suit. But
that could get me to play all by itself. I don't know, no joke. That skin makes me want to play this way more than I would normally.
Well, I really feel like Diablo 3 is a really good game for the Discord community or something like that. people love, or people are really enjoying Titan Quest, which is in a similar gameplay style. And, something like Monster Hunter 4 or Monster Hunter Generations and Paladins, people really like teaming up within our community and playing games together. Even Nine Parchments had a thing for a while. So I do not doubt that Diablo 3 is going to be received very well within our community and within the Switch community as a whole.
Very cool, yeah. And this was one of your Switch picks a while back, your system Switch picks a while back.
Oh, yeah. Do you not think that Diablo 3 is just perfect for the Switch? I feel like it is.
And I've never played the Diablo series, but it does, from what I know of it, it does seem like a perfect fit. I mean, just the multiplayerness of it, the teamwork, aspect, and
I really just feel like Diablo 3 is perfect for a console game, console platform, because it essentially becomes Gauntlet with loot.
Yeah,
and who doesn't enjoy Gauntlet Legends or Gauntlet in any form?
Switching back a little bit towards the brawler type games, what do we call it, platform brawler game of Rivals of Aether, which is a pretty cool option that's coming up. It's more of like these anthropomorphic characters, a little more 16-bit graphics style of platform brawler, but it's an interesting one. It's actually pretty popular on Steam right now, but I actually liked what this game was like. But they just announced Shovel Knight will be the newest fighter coming to this game, and they showed off a little trailer with some of his moves, and it's probably a smart thing to bring the Switch audience to earn a little more attention from the Switch audience there.
Yeah. Shovel Knight didn't quite make it to the roster on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but this is probably the next best thing.
He did make assist trophy, which is like,
he did.
Silver medal of that.
Yes, but not the full roster. So it's interesting that this is a bit of a crossover, though, because yeah, he is an assist trophy, but he's a full-fledged character in Rivals of Aether. It shows a little bit more legitimacy.
Yeah, and that is not a game that normally has, like, the crossover characters. It's a game with all original, like I said, there's these animal creatures that are associated with different elements, and I don't know if they have other crossover characters before this one or not. They probably had someone else, but that's not the main thrust of that game.
Right.
But still pretty cool. It's a pretty cool look. I recommend people check it out if they're looking for a less 3D graphics-y type of brawler.
And Rivals of Aether is an indie game, but it was made by competitive Smash players. So if you really like the competitive Smash experience, without necessarily having everything tied to the Nintendo franchises, this is something to look into.
All right, in hardware news, we have just got an announcement that there will be a special exclusive Walmart bundle of the Nintendo Switch that will come with Mario Tennis Aces and 1-2 Switch that will be hitting September 5th, so less than a month away. And if you know anyone who's looking to buy a Switch or might buy one for a gift down the line, might be a great multiplayer pack of games there. And 1-2 Switch always should have been a bundled game, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I feel like it should have just been built into the Switch as a Wii Sports style add-in.
Yeah, I think that people will like it more as a bundle. I feel like when you think of it buying it separately, you have certain expectations that it might not meet. But yeah, as a pre-package, I think people will probably have a more favorable opinion of it.
Yeah, I agree. Now, there is an additional peripheral to the Joy-Cons that was developed by GameTech. They created a Joy-Con ring holder. This is a little bit interesting because you attach it to the back of a Joy-Con, and if you pop it out, it includes a ring that you can stick your finger through, and that prevents the Joy-Cons from really flying out of your hands when you're swinging it around or using it.
It's kind of like those little rings people keep on the back of their cell phones that like
the pop sockets.
Yeah, that's what they call those things.
Yeah, it's kind of like a pop socket, but for your Joy-Con.
Yeah.
What's even cooler, I guess, is that you can pop out the rings while they're attached to the Switch itself, and that acts as its own secondary mount. So that might be something to look into if you're interested in that.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Oh, I also like these Cyber Gadget controllers. They're a new third-party Pro controller that's coming onto the market. A fine alternative to the Pro controller in that it also has the gyroscope controls built in. And its real trick is that it offers what do you call that? Macro buttons. So you could pre-program button combinations or other things into them for easier use. I guess, maybe if you want to quote unquote cheat in a fighting game and just pre-input certain combinations. I can't think of what other games I might need those kind of things for. What kind of
inputs for?
Yeah. What else would I want to pre-program a macro for?
That's actually a good question. I'm not entirely sure. I feel like macros are generally built for fighting games.
Yeah, so I guess that's the main thing. If anyone else could think of something for it, though, let me know. And but they have a similar form factor to the Pro Controller. It doesn't look quite as round, but we'll see. If anyone gets their hands on these, I'd be curious how they feel.
Yeah.
All right, so then moving on to down the pipe, we have a new release date for Dark Souls Remastered. It will be coming out October 18th now. So.
Oof, about time. It's been delayed for so long.
Yeah.
The hype for it's kind of diminished a bit.
It has hurt the momentum, especially with all the people who have been playing it on the other systems for a while now. So, but it's Dark Souls. I mean, if nothing else, it has one of the most dedicated fan bases around. So we'll see if they can keep the energy going. What other? So we have Undertale Collector's Edition was announced for September. So we have another version with a few extra goodies in case anyone's interested in that.
Yeah, speaking of really, really loyal and dedicated fan bases, Undertale is very, very popular.
Yeah, that's a pretty crazy game with a lot of those theories about what's really going on and who's the good and bad guys of the story, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mega Man 11 demo is coming out this month. So we have another of the Mega Man games coming out. The full game will be out October 11th. And I think we mentioned this. We saw a trailer for it before. It's, a Mega Man style game, like non-X style game, but with the 3D models of like a more modern one. Also coming out in September, This Is the Police 2. I was not crazy about This Is the Police 1, but I will give this one a chance because I like the gameplay. I like the idea of the game.
It was just the choices that you're forced to make weren't really...
Yeah, I don't think it was... I won't go into that again. Right, but I think the situations they put me in were uncomfortable and just not interesting to me.
Right.
It's hard to make a game with moral dilemmas when the moral dilemma is just a no-brainer to me,
Right.
My Memory of Us. This is a pretty cool a side-scrolling puzzle game with these. It has the voice of what's the guy? The Captain
Patrick
Picard.
Stewart.
Yeah, Patrick Stewart as the narrator, and it's got this kind of a pretty cute art style to the characters, but it has an interesting setting. It takes place with like these kids like living in a just like a simple village life, but then the Robot King and his evil army of robots comes in and takes over in a not too subtle allegory for World War II Warsaw. So it takes a very dark turn very quickly, but it has to do with these these friends, these little kids who are trying to help each other out in this extremely dark situation there. It almost reminds me of how... You ever watch Samurai Jack?
Yeah.
I love Samurai Jack, and they always had that thing where if they wanted to have Jack do horrible like things to enemies, like cut people in half and have a bad guy be bad by like mutilating things, they always had it done to robots because that gets them out of having to show blood. I feel like the robot armies in this game, they're like trying to show the same kind of like dark gore, but not really be mature because it's robots, not like humans.
That's true. And, that's actually a pretty common trope and pretty common way to circumvent the horror of what people are actually doing. They do the same with zombies too, but...
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Gris, this is a puzzle platformer that's coming to Switch with a kind of cool little musical theme going on to it. It's just kind of it kind of reminds me of a more graphically smooth... Oh, I don't want to know what's... I can't... It just looks like a beautifully animated, like almost like a Disney film, but...
it looks like a music video, almost.
Oh, you know what it reminds me of? Oh, what was that game with the little... wandering in the desert guy with the little cloak.
Journey.
Yeah, it kind of looks
like a 2D Journey.
Yeah. Okay, let's put it that way. Necrobarista. This is actually a cool looking game with a cel shaded art, 3D characters in a visual novel that it's got this 3D point-and-click adventure visual novel game, and it has a really cool style to it that I'm probably going to bite on.
It's interesting that being a barista is kind of its own genre at this point.
Really?
Or what maybe even Valhalla.
Oh yeah, that's right. Forgot about Valhalla. All right. You made your point. Proven.
Yeah, it's just maybe a subgenre of visual novel games now. Who knows?
That's true. That's funny. So yeah, but this one definitely has like a more modern like art sensibilities with like these 3D characters, but the cell shading is like really cool on this one.
Right.
We also got word of Doom Eternal coming to Switch with no particular release date, but yeah.
What's special about this is that they announced Doom Eternal's release on the Switch at the same time as every other console. So we don't know if it's going to be a fully simultaneous release, but the fact that they are announcing Doom Eternal at the same time as everything else means that Bethesda and id Software, they're really just treating the Switch as an equal to the other platforms. I love it.
Very cool. Super Crush KO is I want to say like a side-scrolling brawler game with a very soft art style where you're like this like schoolgirl beating up robots. And it's by the same people who did Graceful Explosion Machine. So they have a little bit of cred under their belt that I'm willing to check this one out.
Yeah.
And finally, The Messenger. This is that Ninja Gaiden game, but you switch back and forth between 8-bit world and 16-bit world, and your character has different abilities depending on which graphic style you're in.
Yeah, I'm so proud that you pronounced that properly. It's a slight pet peeve of mine when people say Ninja Gaiden.
But yeah, tell us what the new releases are, JV, for this week.
All right, so on August 16th, which is today, we are getting Pick-a-Pix Deluxe, small puzzles, large puzzles, and mixed puzzles, Castle Storm, Red's Kingdom, Roboto, Johnny Turbo's Arcade Nitro Ball, Manuel Samuel, and Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. Now that one is actually pretty... Yeah, that one's the game where one person has the manual, the other person is the one defusing the bomb, and you have to work together in order to prevent the explosion from happening.
I might have to get that just for Switch Fest. That sounds like such a great team game.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I'll pick that up as well. On the 17th, we are getting Treadnoughts, Polygod, Detective Gaio, and Persian Nights Sands of Wonder. On August 20th, we are getting Spectrum. On August 21st, we are getting All-Star Fruit Racing. So if you don't want to race with Mario Kart, you can race with fruit, I guess.
Tired of all those old updates on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? Well, wait till you get the Melon DLC.
Oh yeah, here's some fruit. And it's on the 22nd, we are getting Out of the Box and The Escapists 2, The Glorious Regime.
All right, cool then. All right, let's take our last little breather. Let me drink a little water, and we'll close out with our Community Pulse and the System Switch picks. All right, Community Pulse this week. I asked the viewership, or the listenership, what kind of Nintendo rewards do you want to see come to the My Nintendo Rewards program? And have you used it in the past? And if so, what did you get out of it?
So, to start us off, with Elvis Sanchez, he says, I remember trying my darndest to get 1,000 gold coins to buy Donkey Kong Country Returns for my Wii U. I had to buy so many games to get that much. Yeah, it's actually interesting that it sounds like you bought other games just to get this one game as an option, which is interesting and kind of what Nintendo's looking for with this type of rewards program.
You know what? I actually just recently checked on my account to see like how many gold coins I have. And I'm actually at the point now where every month I don't spend them. Some of my coins are going expired. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's just, it is how it is. And I'm kind of bummed that they even have that expiration in the first place.
Yeah, I gotta use them now, and I don't know, like what. I'll probably download something before my trip, so we'll see if I can get something I want.
Yeah.
All right, on the Twitters, we had @MacThePC wrote, 1, yes, I've gotten plenty of phone wallpapers, Nintendo 3DS themes, and I got the Zelda Twilight Princess Picross game, among other things. To answer the second part, I wish they had mail-to-order rewards like Club Nintendo did. I'm also hoping they'll give out the Koro Koro and 7-Eleven Splatoon 2 DLC.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good. I really do like that they had those mail to order rewards, and it's something that I really miss. I liked having the physical rewards from getting those Nintendo. Have you ever redeemed one of those?
I redeemed, but I didn't use it yet. The printout for the new box covers, like the inserts for the boxes for your Switch games.
Oh yeah,
I downloaded the Octopath one, as well as the iPhone wallpaper. That is actually my current wallpaper on iPhone right now. Like I said, I used them just to use some coins up.
Yeah. Back then, the Club Nintendo rewards were really good. Mm-hmm. Like, to be a Platinum member, they actually sent you a physical statue of, like, Mario and Bowser. And that was, like, a display piece to be proud of. And nowadays, it's all just digital rewards. I don't think they want to bother with the whole mail-to-order reward system like they used to.
So jealous. Joey got the one that I wanted more than anything else.
Which one did he get?
Mario-themed Hanafuda cards.
Oh, that's right. I wanted those too. But I believe I had a window to get them, but I was just shy of the coin cost for them. So I was really disappointed. And then they are just and then they just stopped. They're just not available anymore. So oh boy, I really miss that stuff. So Calvin Connor, he brought up a similar point. He said that he would want literally anything physical in the mail. I got a Boo the Ghost book of graph paper, and it was super premium quality. I loved it. I also have the Mario hat, a calendar from 1 year. It's all better than the diddly we get now. I mean, discounts are okay, but it doesn't really feel like much of a reward. That should come standard. So yeah, that is a good point, I think. While My Nintendo does give you discounts on future games, which is actually a pretty substantial reward, getting those discounts don't feel as rewarding as getting a physical product in the mail. Do you agree with that, Casey?
I prefer the mail stuff, definitely. Like, it's just something substantial, and I just want something that makes me feel like something unique, even if it's not that valuable, just something that I can get that's like, something collectible that I feel special for actually going through this.
It's a physical manifestation of your dedication to Nintendo as a platform.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah, and because especially with discounts, you're getting the game anyway, and the discounts aren't that big where it puts a big dent into the cost. So it feels like less of a reward overall.
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting one. I want to read this, but I also want to read a reply actually to this one. Chewy Plays Nintendo wrote, I've saved my gold points for indie games. I use some to get indies and DLC. Personally, I'm happy at least being able to use them on the Switch eShop. It's better than the discounts we were limited to before. Now, someone then replied, how do you use them? The fact that the fact that it's not super clear how to get these points or how to use them, I feel like is kind of part of the problem in this process. It should be a little more like in your face and obvious. It should be part of that news thing, or like there should be alerts reminding people, hey, there's this system here that if you're not part of already, use it and get all this cool free stuff. They should really be throwing in our faces more.
Yeah, the eShop as a whole definitely needs a bit more of an infrastructure upgrade, because this functionality plus the fact that games can sometimes be hard to find is just it's a bit of a mess on the eShop, to be honest. And there are a lot of features and functionality that they can improve on, this being one of them.
All right, so that sounds fine for there. Again, if you guys ever want to suggest a topic for a community pulse, feel free to message me on the Discord or to drop me an email, casey@theswitchcast.com, and I'd be happy to oblige. But for now, we're going to close up our episode with our usual final ceremony in the system switch. And I'm very anxious to hear what yours is next, because I did ask you last week to pick a game from something you saw at Gen Con, and were you able to do that?
Yes, I was. So I played a lot of card games at Gen Con. One of the card games that really piqued my interest was this game from Fantasy Flight called Keyforge, Call of the Archons. Now, this is a face-to-face 1-versus-1 card game where you're clashing against a single opponent in order to gather more amber than the opponent, and ultimately collecting the 3 keystones to win. The gameplay is pretty straightforward in the sense that you have 3 different factions in one deck, and whenever you want to play a card, there's no specific cost to play anything. But you can only play cards of a specific clan or specific type at once. So if I want to have a bunch of Logos cards in my hands, I can say, I'm going to play Logos cards this turn, and you just play all of them.
I see.
Or I want to play all my shadows, so you play all of them at once. And that's just an interesting back and forth that really does not limit you based on resources, but limits you based on what you want to prioritize each turn, which I think is really cool. But what is even better, or not necessarily better, but what's the most interesting about Keyforge is the delivery system of this game.
Oh.
Every deck is completely unique. So, you don't go out buying booster packs for this. You actually just buy a deck.
A pre-made deck.
Yeah, a pre-made deck. And all that's available are different pre-made decks that are actually semi-randomly assorted and are fixed. So, you can have a deck that is of Logos, Shadows, and Sanctum combined together. The cards that are in that deck come with a deck list that you cannot change.
I see. Okay, so there's no customizing or anything like that?
You don't customize the deck, but the deck you get is completely unique, and the card combinations are completely unique to that one deck that you just purchased. No other player has that exact same combination of cards.
I see. So literally, there's, you get a pre-made deck that is literally unique, and that's what you have to use.
Right, exactly. And each deck comes with a card deck list that has has fixed values or fixed assignments to how many cards are in it.
Is there any reason why a player couldn't customize the deck on his own and just play it if he wanted to customize it anyway?
They could, but that's kind of not the point of the game.
Okay.
The point is that whenever you don't really necessarily collect all the cards to build your own decks. You're going out there collecting all the different deck combinations and then choosing the ones that fit your playstyle. And each of those decks come with that deck card list, but it comes with a QR code that you scan into a digital copy of the game on a tablet, and that pulls the deck into the digital version, and you can play online from there.
That'd be cool to save that onto an amiibo and then just load up your deck that way.
Well, it's through a QR code, so...
No, I'm saying if it came to Switch, they could have it on, save the decks that maybe you bought on there, and then, let's say you go to someone else's house to play, or you want to play online. Just a way to load up your different decks.
I think each deck has its own specific code and combination that you can plug in if you don't have a camera for a QR reader. But overall, the game is actually pretty interesting, and the way you get cards is very interesting in its own way. I like the concepts that the metas kind of aren't as rigid because there's no possible way you can net deck with other people exactly.
I'm very curious to look into this. I'm really interested to see how they make that. How do they balance the different random decks that people are getting, or how does
I feel
is it possible for someone to just get a the combination I got is just not as good as certain ones, or I don't know, it just brings up a lot of questions, and I trust Fantasy Flight. They know what they're doing, so it's not like I doubt them. I'm just really intrigued by how they are actually executing this plan.
I feel like each deck, since each deck comes with a combination of 3 different houses or clans or whatever they're called, and I believe each house has a set, includes a set number of cards that are kind of like the baseline to represent each of that house and that house's functionality. But then the peripheral cards for each house are randomized. So you can't, aren't necessarily screwed over for for getting something, and you're not getting the base cards that you need to really function properly.
Okay, I'm intrigued. My attention's intrigued here.
Yeah, and ultimately what interested me the most is the fact that you can just scan in the deck list into a digital copy, and you just get the cards available immediately.
That's cool. That's very cool. All right, Keyforge. Keyforge. Now, actually, my pick for this week is a pick I feel like, why did I not think of this last week? I kicked myself over the week.
Yeah?
Why? I can't believe this is too perfect for the Switch. And it's another Castlevania game, but I can't believe this is way too perfect for the Switch. And it was one of my favorite games I had played on for my brief stint playing on a PS3. And this is Castlevania Harmony of Despair.
Oh!
The online action co-op Castlevania game.
Wait, you played the Harmony of Despair?
I played the heck out of that game.
I played that too. I was super into it.
So, if anyone doesn't know how this worked, there were, to start, there were 4 different maps, like a castle or, a labyrinth of rooms, and somewhere in the castle was the boss monster that you'd have to beat. But more maps were added with DLC later on. And the players would all start at different entryways and different corners of the map, and it was never a straight path to the boss. You'd have to do in very typical Castlevania style. You'd have to find out how to open up certain gateways. Maybe, there'd be enemies all over, different paths and traps everywhere. So you felt like you were playing pretty much a Castlevania game, except you had your allies and you try to help each other get to parts. You'd find treasure chests and get different equipment. And eventually you'd try to get everyone together to fight the boss and beat him before time ran out. And they had a whole selection of characters throughout Castlevania history. You could be Alucard, you could be Richter, you could be, original Simon, you could be Soma Cruz, Maria, characters I didn't even know about before. They're all in there.
And I just love that they included so many of the different characters, a lot of them coming from the DS, actually.
Yes, and they all had so many different gameplay mechanics. Some characters were worried about equipment mostly, and they were very much looking for certain types of gear that you would get in the missions. You would level up. Some characters were more focused on leveling up certain spells they had or different attacks. They all had kind of various ways of powering up, and there were unite attacks or whatever they called them, like dual crushes, and there was just a lot of depth to it, and there was a lot of options to raise the difficulty, and you could really take on a really challenging mission there. And of course, it had the awesome music of a Castlevania game. But yeah, just playing online with people was a great thing, and I feel like if this came to the Switch, it's just perfect to team up with. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I 100% agree that this would be so good on the Switch. I feel like multiplayer co-op Castlevania is just not often explored, and this style of game being fully co-op is just something that I really look forward to.
And it would have an option that the console versions before didn't. You could have local multiplayer. You could play with just somebody on another Switch nearby, and you could just play locally and power up your characters that way, which is really cool.
Yeah, I dig.
So yeah, I kicked myself for not thinking of it sooner, but I got excited thinking about, man, what if they did bring this over? I really want to make a petition for this game now.
It's definitely interesting because this game kind of had a bit of a lukewarm reception when it first came out, but despite that, I had a ton of fun with it.
I just think it wasn't, it was a cult following. The people who played it loved it. And I just think the PlayStation 3 wasn't the right, or it was on Xbox too. I just don't feel like those were the right systems for it.
Right. Yeah. I feel like something like the Switch would be perfect for this. And you cannot expect it to be a full-fledged Castlevania game. It's not one gigantic castle. It's more of like a segmented experience each time, and that probably turned a lot of people off too.
Yeah. It's about the challenge, and pushing your characters, leveling up. There was a little bit of grind. There was definitely times where I just went into a castle with some higher level people just so they could beat a boss while I fought minions and leveled my character up so that I could, because I was doing the healer girl for some time and I wanted to be a good healer. I like support roles, and some people just helped me out leveling up in tougher dungeons than I was meant to be in.
Yeah, but still, it was such a fun experience, and multiplayer. I think there is the dragon marked for death.
Right.
Is kind of this experience, so I'm looking forward to that, but having it set in a Castlevania world is something I'd really, really want on the Switch.
All right. Well, I'm glad we both wholeheartedly agree on that one.
Oh, so, yeah. Oof, I have good memories for that.
Yeah, great. All right. So let's close up shop for the night, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. And until next time,
switch it up. Thanks for listening. You can support the SwitchCast by visiting us at patreon.com/theswitchcast and join the review crew by rating us and subscribing on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Also, check out our Discord chat where we have an enthusiastic bunch of Switch fans in a family-friendly environment. Also, join our Facebook group for daily discussion and quite a bit of activity towards the Switch itself.
You can also contact us directly via email at kc@theswitchcast.com and jv@theswitchcast.com. Talk to us on Twitter @theswitchcast.
Thank you, HeatleyBros, for the theme music. And check us out on our website at theswitchcast.com, where we will post all relevant links and show notes.
Promotional considerations provided by publishers in the form of review copies of games. Do you want to just pour them out? Do you want to just pour them out into something, or the snacks? Oh, that's cheese. Okay.